Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Not So Giant Women. Ivy and Daria are here to watch and talk about Lion 2, the movie. So I think we know which character we'll be revisiting today.
Yeah, he's up there front and center. Whether this means he's going to try to make a movie or something about a movie, or they just thought it was a clever title, we don't know.
Yeah.
Let's see how our little strawberry-coloured feline, or our large strawberry-coloured feline, deals with this. Okay, I'll set my volume and away we go.
We are the crystal gems. We'll always save the day. Is that in the book?
They're taking some liberties.
Okay, there's a lot in that one. Something.
You bet. Learned a few things about Lion, eh?
Yeah. I don't know. I could just watch the Dog Copter franchise all day, to be honest. But
Oh.
Right, let's see if I can recap and not trip over all the amount of stuff in this one.
Oh.
Right, Stephen and Connie are off to the movies to see the latest installment of Dog Copter, Connie's favourite movie franchise. She does hope this will be faithful to the book. While they are getting ready to head out, the Gems stop by. Pearl does her, oh, look, Stephen's friend is here thing. Amethyst shows off shape-shifting in the Dog Copter. And, well, that's actually pretty much the Gems for this week, because when they're going to go to the movies, Connie asks how they get there. Apparently, this is a part of Beach City that is further away than most, and Stephen says they're going to ride Lion. Lion doesn't really seem to know this. Connie is amazed at the everything as ever. When the Gems have been there, she is, oh my goodness, and he is like, oh, the Gems are here. She marvels at the pet lion. Doesn't mention that he's pink, but, maybe she's just, all lions of all colours are God's children to her.
Interesting interpretation.
Stephen and Connie climb onto Lion's back, and he asks Lion to take them to the movies, which Lion does not do. Tries to entice him along a few times, and it's not until Stephen mentions that Lion isn't very well trained. In fact, Stephen isn't very well trained, that Lion perks up and starts to run with them on his back over the water. Turns out he can walk on water. As Stephen mentions, why don't you tell me you can do these things you do? Lion lets out a roar, and this projects a portal that they run through, that they go through, and it brings them not to the cinema, but to it's a cave with a huge platform in the middle. As the pair surmise pretty quickly, it is a magical gem place. The requisite clothes seem to be pink, much like anything to do with Stephen and Rose. And in fact, when they journey to the center of the platform, they see a pedestal rise up, and there is an engraving on the pedestal, which is a rose and thorn design, which is also the same as we saw on Stephen's shield last time he managed to get it out. Stephen puts his hand on this, and his hand gets stuck there. As they panic about this slightly, and Lion has a nap. Connie says, oh, we might have to chop it off, meaning Stephen's hand, and at that point a number of swords rise out of the platform. They experiment and find that various remarks cause various weapons and accessories to appear from the platforms, axes and swords and spiky chain ball things, maces or morning stars for those listening along that didn't see them, and suits of armor, which interestingly appear when Stephen says he might end up having to pee it, Connie tickling him to get a reaction. Connie is wondering if she's supposed to be here. Stephen says he wants her here. Well, not here in the cave place, but here with him, preferably at the movies. The platform soon dispenses a giant floating snow cone looking robot thing with various nozzles on it, and these nozzles twist around and shoot fire and ice and beams at our heroes as they have to duck and weave behind a set of spikes that have appeared out of the platform. Stephen calls for Lion to get them out of here. Lion obeys this time, roars up a portal again, and carries the two back through it, and they exit in front of the cinema. Connie can't understand why Stephen would want to hang out with her because she's so much less magic and, or as she puts it, more or less interesting than anything else he knows. But Stephen brushes this off and gets cut off in mid-brush off because another portal opens and the snow cone bot has followed them through and is shooting at them. They call for Lion for help. Lion bows down and glows and produces a pink sword from his head. The sword looks a lot like a gem construct, one of their hard light tools. Stephen again berates Lion for not telling him he can do these things. I'm not sure Stephen's picked up that Lion can't actually speak yet. And, nonetheless, this sword, I don't know if it's a broadsword, but it's a broad sword. When they swing it, it deflects the beams from the snow cone bot. And they take a few swipes until, holding the sword together, Stephen and Connie use her tennis practice moves, as complained about earlier in the episode, to forehand, backhand, and then overhead death strike the bolts back at the robot, finally destroying it. This dealt with, they ask for tickets for 2 kids and 1 lion to see Dogcopter 3, and we go to credits on them in the cinema, all 3 of them wearing their 3D glasses, and Connie notes they have taken a few artistic liberties from the book. And we get a little parody of Lion from the MGM logo.
Yeah. I gotta say, I used to play tennis. I guess I still play tennis, and I never learned how to overhead death strike.
No, same and same.
Yeah, a few slams, but no one died.
No, but then I only ever played my coach and the other students and, not a snow cone of death.
No, I certainly never played a snow cone of death. Yep. I don't think my racket would stand up to that.
Obviously, you need some gem hard light pink rose racket.
Yeah, well, if I had that, I don't know if I'd be playing tennis with it.
Also much this week, what I neglected to mention is there were laser light cannons from the, laser light cannon episode also in the cave, arena, dojo place.
That is true. That was kind of a throwback there. You get to see something you saw in episode 2, and then there's 3 of them hiding in this place.
And, this is obviously something pretty Rose-centric, I'm thinking, because not only are the requisite glows pink, there are 3 of her laser light cannons there, so nice to know there are a few spares in case any more sun eyeballs turn up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the plinth pedestal was the same Rose and Thorn logo as seen on Stephen's shield.
Definitely a connection.
And Lion took Stephen, of all people, there. Mm-hmm. And in fact, right when he said he wasn't trained very well, which if Stephen wasn't so completely scared out of his mind and preferring to go to the movies, this could be a training environment. So Lion is definitely not letting on a lot. And the sword that he produced had a rose on its hilt. And
yes,
rose quartz's stuff, at least as we've seen so far, tend to have a flower rose on them. So we're looking at a connection there between the stuff, potentially Lion, and I've always wondered about that because he is the proper color.
Yep.
Even if he doesn't immediately, my suspicions about him being some kind of gem-based life forms have obviously increased. Now he can run to gem places and produce swords from his head.
Yes, make portals and walk on water. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rose does appear to like her branding, doesn't she? Yeah. Easy to tell what was hers.
And whether this was just her stuff or not, she seems to have left quite a legacy for her son. Mm-hmm. Obviously, again, we can't tell what she had in mind, but there are definite hints of him being essentially able to fill her role as a gem warrior, such as he can.
Yeah, he didn't really seem to be trying to fight that thing at all. He was just running away from it. He had the bubble up, and that was interesting, is that this was able to destroy the bubble. It actually popped it. We'd never seen that before.
No, it's only popped by itself last time. And
yeah, the harpoons and all kinds of roller coasters running over it and stuff didn't pop it, but this did.
Yeah. And it only came up by itself when he was panicking about being shot by a...
That's right.
Goodness knows what that is.
Yeah, I don't know how he would use that training room. Like, he doesn't seem to have offensive tendencies, he's defense. So,
well, even though it can be used offensively, his weapon is a shield whose, raison d'etre is to protect.
You can throw it, but yeah.
I don't think that's entirely his mother's bent, as she does have a stock of laser cannons, which are fairly offensive. So maybe this is more in his nature. And again, looking into how one's gemness reflects one's personality and or vice versa. And he, as far as I know, at this point, is the only gem-human hybrid, which means a lot of the rules have got to be up for discussion, as it were. It's a fair guess that he may not work entirely the same as other gems do.
Yeah, you really can't tell every time he manifests something. Like, is this something that is a gem power, or is it more like a Steven/human-y version of that power?
And even Pearl worried about that a few weeks ago with the age-changing thing.
Yes.
She even said so much is because she's half human.
Right. So she doesn't really know how the aging will affect him or whether he can die from it.
And got to be Connie again this week, and I like that they haven't taken the easy way and made her exasperated and terrified of all the magic things. She's quite fascinated by them, and she's more worried that the magic, or Stephen himself, doesn't want her there. I mean, he dismisses her of this notion as far as he himself is concerned, but it would have been an easy way to have her angry every time some magic thing happens around them, whereas she's fine with that happening. It's usually when it goes against her, she's more concerned for her own survival, as she has no magicness or no gemness, unless she holds on to that sword, because I know she was carrying at the end.
It's a really good point, because that's absolutely the thing I like best about this episode. Is it's kind of, Connie is not your typical sort of sidekick where she's bamboozled by everything but doesn't want to be a part of it. She wishes she was more a part of it, and she wants to know more about it, but she's surprised to even be considered as a worthy partner for Stephen to, bring into his world. And, he's Stephen, so he does the same things with gem stuff as he does with human stuff. He thinks Dogcopter is like this amazing thing. He wants to see it. He's prioritizing that in front of wanting to see a magic gem place. He's like, seeing probably ancient armor and all this stuff. And he's thinking about, we got to get there in time for the previews. It's just, that is equally fascinating to him. And I find that really interesting about Stephen.
Yeah, I've always loved that about Stephen, that both of his worlds are of equal import to him.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. He's worried that Connie is not going to like him because he's always messing stuff up, or, that he's a gem warrior, but he's not very good at it, that she's going to judge him for messing it up. So I think it's kind of cute that at this point they're both a little insecure about whether each other like each other enough.
And she's the first regular human that we've seen brought into Stephen and the Gems world. When we met Greg, he'd already known them for ages, and he'd been married to and had a baby with a gem. So by the time we meet him, he's fairly entrenched in things, even if he tries to be otherwise. Whereas she comes in while we're watching, completely new to this whole idea of gems and things. And
she's not, in the first episode where we met her, she said that they don't live in Beach City, so maybe they don't get as much of it over there. That her dad moves around to a bunch of different beaches and stuff, so
I guess she flits in and out.
Yeah, I like kind of the implication. I don't know for sure that this is what they were going for, but I like the implication that this is like a continuation of their friendship, and that there was some stuff in between that maybe we didn't get to see between the first time we saw her and this time, because she displays familiarity with, like, oh, is this one of those magic gem places you've told me about? And we didn't see that on screen, so we assume they've been talking, and that's kind of cute too.
Yeah, I saw that and I like that. I definitely got the idea they were more familiar, as you say, more relaxed around each other, and, they're close enough to concoct plans to go to the movies and sneak their own snacks in together.
Regarding that, Connie again mentions her parents, that they have rules about what she can buy at the theater, and she's got this way of getting around it. You get this idea her parents are pretty strict, and it made me wonder, like, if you have really controlling parents like that, they also have a lot of rules about who you hang out with and where you go by yourself and stuff. So I was actually kind of surprised that she's allowed to wander around by herself and nobody's checked to make sure there are adults accompanying them and stuff. Like, that surprised me.
Maybe they're convinced by a bookish exterior that she's not going to do anything exciting, and she's wise enough not to say, I met a guy today and we got trapped in his magic bubble and they fired a harpoon at us. I don't think strict parents would be into that.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it, because I think if I had raised a bookish child who was intellectual and well-behaved and practical, like Connie seems to be, I would trust her to not do something dangerous, like get trapped under the water or, fight a robot shooty thing with a sword. So they probably assume that she doesn't even have any inclination to do those things. And you can't really tell at this point whether they know that she struggles with friendship, like that she's upset about that. Because in episode 7, when she was talking about she's going to die without meeting any friends and stuff, she's clearly been thinking about, I don't have any friends and I want to make friends. So I wonder if her parents are like, oh, good, Connie finally has a friend. We're going to let her hang out with her friend, and that will enrich her emotional development according to a checklist,
And she was smart enough not to let on the rest, because she knows they can't forbid her from doing stuff they don't know she can do.
That's right. It's kind of sad that she already knows how to do that. Like kids that have a lot of strictness and a lot of sort of overscheduledness and all that in their lives get really good at lying or at least leaving out the truth.
This also just seems to be a town where kids just generally just rondo around doing whatever.
Yeah, we've clearly got at least one underage child running a fry shop by himself around hot oil. So, oh goodness. So,
and heaven only knows what the town make of onions, so.
Yeah,
So
he may be a little more of a concern.
So her parents know anything when she comes home and says, I made a friend today. Was it onion? No? Okay, that's fine.
As long as it wasn't that little weirdo. I've heard he steals things by climbing inside a vending machine. Yeah, you'd mentioned there's not much of the gems in this today, even though there's gem stuff. I always kind of miss them when they only have a little walk-on part and then they disappear. But I really liked that walk-on part where they're trying to look cool on the platform. There's posing.
I love Pearl's, it's that girl Stephen likes.
What a surprise. It's cute. And then Amethyst is shape-shifting and showing off and stuff.
Yeah, let's face it, as soon as she heard about Dogcopter, you knew she was going to.
Yes. Then turns her face into a boombox. And Pearl's kind of frowning at it, but Garnet's just nodding along to the music that's coming out of Amethyst's face. This is just a day in the life of the gems.
Again, I still don't know how much Garnet understands television and movies, and if she's wondering if they can recruit Dogcopter if they get into an emergency.
Wonder what she'd think of the books. So another thing we saw about Lion was he has a taste for magic lizards or something.
Oh, yeah, some kind of crystalline, reptilian, feathered half a creature by the time he's done with it.
Yeah, there were some people who theorized that this was some kind of basilisk or something, because there were clearly feathers floating around and it's like a lizard butt and a spine sticking out of it. So it's like, what was that you ate? They do show you what these lizards look like, and they don't look like they have any feathers. So, it's later, slight spoiler, but I'm wondering if he was also eating a seagull. Seagulls are pretty aggressive, so maybe a seagull tried to eat this lizard first.
And Lion's like, nuh-uh, Law of the Jungle, King of the Jungle.
And I'm pink.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he apparently likes to eat lizards. And he doesn't mind being transportation as long as he gets to go wherever the heck he wants.
Or where he thinks Stephen needs to go.
Yes. Yeah, he does seem to respond to the way Stephen talks to certain key phrases, almost as if he was being commanded to take him to this place. So, I don't know.
Well, the first trip, it's almost like a Doctor Who from a few years ago when the TARDIS says that she doesn't take the Doctor where he wants to go, she takes him where he needs to be. And Stephen wants to go to the movies, but going off the training reference and the much-mentioned magical destiny, he needs to be in the cave dojo place to train. Though when Lion is actively told, get us out of here, then he goes. maybe figures today hasn't been a good training day. That's enough for now. Also, now I know what the cinema is.
Yeah, he just comes out and he's like, now you take us to the movies. That ticket taker was a trooper, wasn't she? She was just like, as soon as things calmed down, she's like, do you have a rewards card?
Yeah. And we let lions into the movies here. We don't discriminate. Hate to be the poor bastard get stuck behind him, though.
Seemed like a pretty empty theater.
Yeah.
Unless they just didn't want to draw more people.
Yeah. Maybe Dog Copter's a bit of a niche thing, not the big hit.
Yeah.
Gone downhill since they replaced the main Dog Copter.
Oh, maybe. The 3D glasses he was wearing also were lion-sized. Where do you get those?
I guess you live in Beach City sometimes. You just got to be prepared for stuff.
I guess so. Maybe they were novelty. And she's just like, you know what? I give no craps. Let's just do this. He's going to feel left out. And I probably can't handle it if I have a dissatisfied customer of this size.
Maybe they've got a mascot for the cinema. And
there you go.
yeah, well, Lion seemed content to be there. So there's also the possibility this was elaborate things so they'd feel grateful for Lion's presence, so they'd invite him into the movie with them and he wouldn't have to sit outside all day.
And then that's secretly the reason why there's no one else in the theater.
Yeah. They just saw this enormous pink cat and thought, I'm just going to make my excuses.
Yeah. I've already paid for my ticket, but I'm not staying here in case something happens.
I'll wait for Netflix for Dog Copter 3.
There you go. Let's see. Should I ask you a probing question yet? Or do you have other things you want to talk about from the episode first?
No, probe me, baby.
Okay, a little bit meta. So if Steven Universe was adapted to a movie, what kind of liberties and shortcuts do you think they would probably take?
Oh, that's a good one.
I figure a media savvy person like you would be the perfect person to ask.
I figured there would definitely be the executive meddling trying to make Stephen and Connie into an active love interest.
You think they'd age them up?
I think they would. I think partly because it's really difficult to work with younger children to make movies.
Mm-hmm. So they'd be 17 and played by 24-year-olds.
Yeah. They would give Stephen angst about his destiny, which this one definitely does not really have at this point.
Oh.
They would probably bring in a villain by bringing in someone who really doesn't come in the series, and I have no idea if I'm actually talking about anyone specifically at the moment, but bringing in a villain from way, way later in the story but pulling them back to the start of the story. This would involve, they would include Stephen.
Big bad or something that they just put him in.
Yeah. So the season 2 end of story big bad would be the movie villain that they meet right at the start, because a movie would also have Stephen learning about his gemness and destiny and things which in fact he hasn't actually really technically done on screen for us.
Yeah.
We've seen that he knows, and we know a fair amount by now. We haven't seen the moment where someone sits Stephen down and says, by the way, your mother was an interdimensional space rock lady and inherited her space rock and some of her space rock powers.
Yeah. Huh.
I once would have said they would have not coloured in the gems' skin colours, except now, post Guardians of the Galaxy, everyone wants people of primary colour in their movies, so that's probably going to last intact.
Oh, you mean if they cast people, they would definitely be in makeup?
Yeah, or electronics or whatever.
Yeah.
But I remember it wasn't that long ago, I was watching things adapted where people were brightly coloured in the source material and on screen were just regular humans with a few costume highlights of the relevant colour. But I think post-Nebula, post-Gamora, we would probably see them in all their burgundy and pale whitish green and lavender glory.
I wonder what they would do, because on the one hand, if you're going to make a faithful adaptation, you really can't have Amethyst not be in purple, right? I mean, otherwise she mostly just looks like a funky, long-haired short girl.
Well, yeah, if there were regular human colours, she would stand out less than the other two. She would just... Mm-hmm. And in fact, if she just does her shirt up, she even hides her gem pretty easily.
Right. But I wonder if they did make a movie of it with actors, whether they would try to do like an edgy adaptation where they all are some kind of human. And that would annoy me. Wonder if they'd make Greg like a loser stereotype.
I think they'd go all the way one way or the other. He'd either be a total loser stereotype or he'd be much more competent and handsome, or traditionally handsome, I should say.
He'd have a 6-pack.
In fact, I can imagine that in this version, high school student Stephen doesn't know about any of the gems at the start, and his attention is piqued by this purple-haired girl at school who occasionally seems to catch her watching him, and he doesn't know what that's about. And that's Amethyst trying to size him up to reveal his destiny to him.
And one day he sees her eat an entire cart of lunches.
Yeah. Oh, and they give him a male best friend too. Connie would be his love interest. They'd probably shoehorn Lars into becoming his friend figure.
Oh, that would be interesting.
They may or may not. Yeah, they have Lars, his friend at high school, which might require aging him down a bit, depending how old Lars is actually supposed to be. But if we're aging Stephen up, that's nothing really.
I wonder if they'd do something real cheesy with his mom, like having her come to him like in a dream and deliver important information, or you know what I mean? Like how you often can't have a dead mother in a movie without having some pivotal aspect of like her death needing to be about something and her still having a presence somehow.
Oh, yeah. And he'd see her in like a proper two-way vision at the end of the big climax.
Right.
From the great beyond.
Or she's secretly been there the whole time, somewhere in hiding or something like that. And like all the Steven Universe fans get angry because it's like, no, she's supposed to be gone.
And they have some throwaway references like Lion is just a regular house cat or something.
There you go. Rebecca Sugar's cat is named Lion. I don't know if I've mentioned that. I think I did.
Yeah, I remember that when I was looking at the title for this and thinking about Lion and his inspiration.
Yeah. That was a good probing question. I like your answers.
Yeah, I'm probably going to end up thinking that a whole lot more for quite a while now.
Oh my goodness. If you write an entire screenplay,
Although there was a nice bit of score as they were going across the ocean.
Yeah, there's gorgeous lion music, and the robot shooty thing had some interesting music too. Kind of a almost metallic sort of percussion to it. It was neat.
Yeah, a bit industrial.
Yeah, but I did really like all of the lion songs, the lion accompaniments. So inspiring. But as far as food goes, are we ready for food?
We are ready for food.
To make up for the lack of music, I have 2 foods.
What do we got?
So one was just me being a huge dork, and I made my own display of movie snacks.
Yeah.
And, put my cheeseburger backpack next to it like I'm going to take them to the movies. And it was all obviously store-bought junk food. So there's not really any, I don't know, if I tried to recreate any of those things, it would not be in the spirit of the food itself. So I just did a couple of fancy little things to make the packaging kind of look like it. Like a little bit of art here and there. It was just cute. But the main thing that I actually spent some thought on how to do it and some experimentation on what to do was actually made some crystal lizards for lions to eat. And I made them out of white chocolate that had been dyed green. And I actually bought a chocolate mold that you could use for soap or for candy or whatever. And, just melt down some white chocolate, dye it green, pour it into the mold. And I put little skewers in there for the lollipop sticks, but they can also be the gross spine for when you bite its head off. And After they had like solidified, I just took a pastry brush and brushed some corn syrup on the back of them, and I put some big crystals of green rock candy along their backs so they'd look like crystal. Did some silver and green smaller sprinkles and stuff. They looked very realistic. Almost too cute to eat, but they were delicious.
Oh, that is good.
Good.
I didn't even connect them as being the food of the week because it was a lion food instead of a people food.
Yes, you were not alone, because I asked for some suggestions a while back, and somebody actually suggested this to me on my blog when I was asking that question. And my first response was like, well, I'm not going to do that. I mean, but then I'm like, well, someone did eat it. Lion's a someone.
Yeah.
And as we've seen with Together Breakfast, you don't even necessarily have to eat it on screen for me to want to make it. So I've kind of expanded my definition of what needs to get made on this show. And Crystal Lizard sounded like a lot of fun.
And like a university band.
What's that?
And like a university rock band.
Yeah. So that was my adventure. I took a cute little picture of him with my big stuffed lion, like he was going to eat it.
Awesome.
That's fun.
I wonder if the creatures like that, if they're like pests and parasites, and that's how Lion entertains himself, just getting rid of the little sort of leftover crystal creatures that make their way up the beach rather than, the big ones that are usually attacking things. These things just kind of get in the way and he just eats them.
Yeah, I was wondering if they were similar to the crystal shrimp, because there's these things that don't seem to be the gems that they're fighting, but they're like animal-like critters that are around. I don't know what they are.
Yeah, and was it the centipede right at the start?
Mm-hmm.
Might have been the baby ones of those.
Yeah, those were trying to fight them though, so I don't know. These others are sort of more like random fauna or pests, like you said. I don't know.
And Lion just takes care of them before they get too far up the beach and cause trouble.
Could be. I don't know if they'd be a threat to anyone like the crystal shrimp, or Pearl was afraid of Steven touching them in Cheeseburger Backpack because their shards are deadly.
Though not deadly to Lion.
Clearly not. He can put it in his mouth and chew away and bite its whole front of its body off. A little bit gory. Kind of looked like a weird lizard version of the way cats are depicted as eating fish.
Yeah, it reminded me of the usual cartoon fish skeleton that's been popular, well, ever since there were cartoons.
Pretty much. Okay. I wrote down the episode description, which for once is pretty appropriate. Just said Steven and Connie tried to ride Lion to the movie theater, but Lion has other ideas.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think that says just enough.
I think so. It's a good teaser.
Doesn't tell us what those other ideas are.
Yeah, it also
Lion
doesn't surprise you based on what you know about Lion, because Lion's a cat and Lion always has his own other ideas.
Yeah, Steven's confidence that he can talk to Lion and be understood by Lion is endearing, but I have no idea where it comes from.
Yeah. Even if you can assume that he understands, he's still going to be Lion, and he's still going to just act like you're completely irrelevant whenever it serves his purpose to do so.
Yeah, so he's working to some other plan when he remembers to, when he feels like it.
So did you think that dog copter was a specific reference to anything? Because I had some ideas.
I didn't think anything specific. I was thinking along the, vaguely reminded me of Bolt from a few years before. But
that's what I would have said too.
Also the general trend of animal movies and cyborg movies, and in this case, mushing them together, and of course, general explosion-ridden action movies.
Yeah, I sort of got a little vibe of the like Inspector Gadget kind of things from that old cartoon, where I don't know if that's just the go-to for people who that was their cartoon when they were a kid, but I really liked Inspector Gadget, and I liked that this was a dude who had all these devices that he could use, and one of them was a helicopter that he used all the time. Yeah,
well, to this day, when I see someone or something sprout a little tiny copter like that, I think it was an Inspector Gadget copter. So, yeah, definite there. So maybe Dog Copter can do a few other things besides missiles and copters.
In the trailer, he seemed to have a almost animatronic sounding bark. It was cute. Speaking of references, that Batman reference, the big penny.
Yeah, that was random.
Yeah, I was not expecting that.
You're kind of going, oh, this is, no, we just moved on from the penny after the cents pun. No, okay.
I had to have that explained to me back when I was new to the show because I didn't know the Batman stuff. But, of course, almost everybody has seen more TV than me. So my friend was like, yeah, that's a Batman thing. He has a giant penny. What is it like? He's took it from a villain or something and he keeps it in there as a token.
The penny plunderer.
Yeah, okay. But it's like a very direct reference.
Yeah, which makes it stand out, being so blatant and weird.
Maybe we could just call that Rose's Batcave.
Yeah, the Rose Cave. There we go. And I wouldn't be surprised if Stephen and Connie's comments kind of reflect the writer-artist's own questions about Batman's giant penny.
Could be. This one was written and storyboarded by Jeff Liu and Joe Johnston again. I always like what they do together.
Is anyone famous for weird Stephen faces? Because we definitely got one this week.
I don't know if he drew that. Paul Vallejo usually draws like the famous Stephen faces, but I think that might have been, who draws those faces sometimes with Jeff and Joe? You know what? I'm not really an expert, but I thought it might have been Jeff Liu who drew that, but I could be really wrong. The way his face just deforms sometimes. He's like, we're going to ride in style.
Yeah, and that's been the first art trait that's stuck with me, apart from just general themes, is that there's some, well, I guess it usually comes from Paul Vallejo and maybe others are picking up on it.
Yeah, there's probably a couple of people who actually know who did that, and I have not looked it up. It's kind of not one of the little corners of Steven Universe that I consider myself to be a really good expert on. I mean, sometimes I'll know stuff, but for that, I'm not. But I do know that really expressive, goofy, hilarious faces are kind of like Paul is known for that. And I know that they don't always get credit every time they draw something on the show. Like if they redraw something or mark something up or, change something in a different role in revisions or something, they don't always get a storyboard credit. So for all I know, it could be something that he did, but I kind of suspect it might have been one of the two main board guys for this. Anyway, yeah, his face was definitely notable because I knew exactly what you were talking about.
The first time I saw such a face, it ended up as the thumbnail for that episode. So every time I moved the file or converted the file or did anything, that face was staring back at me.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. And the last reference that I noticed was the really obvious Utena reference with the sword coming out of a character's body. In Utena, it was Anthe had the sword that you pulled out of her chest, I guess, but it came out of Lion's forehead, and it was very, very Utena.
And probably easier if you got someone else to pull it out if it's in your head.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Seemed like the handle of it just materialized there, and then it just sat there, so Stephen had to pull it out. And he goes, "This is weird, right?" Yes, it is weird, Stephen. We can confirm for you that is indeed very strange.
Cottoned on to not everyone has a lion, not everyone's lion. Even those who do have lions have pink lions, and even amongst that narrow demographic, those pink lions do not have swords that grow out of their heads.
Oh, goodness. They didn't say what they did with the sword after. Like, did they put it back? Or
Well, Connie's still holding it when they go to the box office.
Yeah, she is. So, I mean, what do you do with that sword afterwards?
Maybe Steve will let her keep it as kind of a welcome to my world gift.
That would be cute. I would love to see it in her room.
She's suited to it if it ever comes to it because she's got the tennis skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know sword fighting and tennis aren't the same, but in Steven Universe, one can lead to the other. So
it certainly does teach you some, what do you call it? Some good reflexes and how to use something you're holding in your hand to interact with something that is flying at your face. But a sword is not shaped at all like a racket, so.
Probably usually a lot heavier, but I have no idea how heavy or not hard light weapons are.
Yes, that is true, and the nature of this sword has not been specified.
Though Connie, who is in no way superpowered, is able to lift it and just fling it over her shoulder with little difficulty. So
that's true. She's got spindly little arms, doesn't she?
Yeah. And without stereotyping anyone too much, she's a 12-year-old girl. You don't generally expect them to be proficient with waving swords around.
Yeah. You don't necessarily list that as a top 10 likely trait unless you know that they come from an Olympic family or something.
Now we're going to get letters. Actually, in the Middle Ages, so there were young warriors who remember.
Well, a 12-year-old girl was a completely different type of animal in those days.
True.
Let's see, shall I close this out with the merchandise thing?
Yeah, let's see what we got. Let's see the toys.
Well, this time I don't have toys. I just have the Dogcopter shirt on.
That's cool.
So it says Dogcopter 3, and it has the Dogcopter.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I wore this shirt earlier this week, and then I was like, you know what? I'm not going to wear this to work today because I might want to wear it during the podcast. So I set it aside.
Cool. I couldn't see it at first because all that peeks up into the screen is just the edge of the copter swell. So I thought it was a sky or something, but no, it's Dogcopter, and that is so cool.
Yeah, I had another idea for something to show you too, but I think I'm going to wait for the next time we hang out with Lion to show you that.
Oh, cool. I do like Lion, his weird cat stoicism.
Yeah, I've seen the pictures of big cats sitting in boxes and stuff, and they're all cats. So I like that they really seem to understand that about him. Yes, he's pink. Yes, he's some kind of warrior, but he's still a big cat.
Yeah, and in fact, I think Connie's probably the closest we've seen to actually noticing that he's a lion, really.
Right.
Even when Stephen got him, no one was like, oh, the lion could be dangerous because it's a lion.
Right.
And even Connie was just more surprised than anything.
You have a pet lion! And then he's like, well, Lion is sort of like a pet. He does his own thing most of the time, though.
Lion thinks Stephen's his pet.
Oh, well, in a sense, that is true. Pretty much all cat owners. They belong to each other. So how does it feel to be owned?
Yeah, well, up until a few minutes ago, Olive was just in loaf mode on the chair arm next to me, just occasionally looking over to make sure I wasn't up to anything wrong.
Oh, watching out for your best interest, I'm sure.
Yeah. Then she got the zoomies and had to go and attack her BB-8 toy.
Yeah. If you get attacked by a robot shooty thing, I feel like she wouldn't necessarily have your back at this point. If you ever see any swords coming out of her, get alarmed.
Yeah, she's much smaller and less lion-like. It'd probably be like a butter knife.
Okay, I like that. Great image. Are we going to put a button on this one then?
Yep, let's put a button on Lion 2, the movie.
Yes, and may we see Lion again soon. Thanks for listening.
Night all.
Bye. You've been listening to Ivy and Daria on Not So Giant Women.
You can find episodes of the show in video form by looking up Not So Giant Women on YouTube.
Or in audio form at anchor.fm/NotSoGiantWomen or your podcatcher of choice. You can also find us on Facebook.
Audio production by Daria.
Video production and music by Ivy.
Daria can also be heard on Podsploitation, the Ozploitation podcast.
And Ivy at her Steven Universe fan blog at love-takes-work.tumblr.com.
Steven Universe was created by Rebecca Sugar and remains property of Cartoon Network.
No infringement is intended.